because I resuscitated her career. The Lazarus of I'm joking. Alicia Fitzgerald. See, since you came on with me, you've been on Breakfast with Mike, everything's taken off. It's not just your boyfriend Simon who looks after you.
My boyfriend Simon?
Is he not called?
He's not called Simon.
What's he called then?
He's called James.
Ah, there. I see. I gave you the opportunity. I said I'll give him a shout out. He's really nice. I love him.
I didn't say
we
that.
don't live together. I'm not that committed, but I love him. You all right?
You're the worst.
You love it though, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Really, well, honestly, I really love your perspective and take on this today. So, Rachel Reeves, you would understand the station that we work on. There is real cynicism about. Certainly, if you look at her and Starmer on one side talking about growth, but to the point where Miliband doesn't turn up, he's in a huff. Obviously, Sadiq Khan says, "Oh, pollution, noise. I'm going to go against it." So there's a split there. But you look at Starmer and Reeves specifically, and they go on about growth. But then they raise taxes in that budget on small businesses. This workers' right law that's being brought in is going to make it almost impossible to employ anybody without them saying, "I'm sorry, I've cut my toenails and I'm feeling anxious about my life and I'm going to sue you." Literally, that's stupid. And Harry Cole was saying earlier, they talk a good fight sometimes, but there doesn't seem any detail, any depth, any conviction or any plan. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think the thing with that speech today was these big announcements. And don't get me wrong, I'm grateful that there actually were some announcements and some policies, because 9 times out of 10 when you get these speeches, it's kind of just a whole lot of waffle and you haven't actually heard what they're going to do. So in that regard, fine, at least there's some plans there. But with things like the Heathrow airport expansion, I mean, that is going to take ages. I mean, even to get that agreed, to get the planning permission agreed, to get all these things agreed, that will take about 4 years. Then actually building it will take, like 7, 8, 9 years? I mean, that's going to take us into the 2030s. And who knows who's going to be in power when that time comes around. So, I mean, all of these things, I get that stuff doesn't happen overnight, but it's just this idea of kicking stuff down the line again. I mean, fine, in 10 years, we might have some growth as a result of this policy, but, like, we need it now.
But growth, yeah, and you're absolutely right, and we said it earlier. We gave the example of Abu Dhabi and how they built the Yas Marina, the Formula One racetrack, in they said 3 years, and they did it within 1,000 days. That's what they said. In this country, the planning, so you're right, virtue signalling, saying, "Oh, I think we should build that because it'll help growth," but when you're then raising taxes against small, medium and even larger businesses, which make it impossible for them to continue. We speak to people all the time who are either leaving this country because they're wealthy or successful and they create wealth for other people. "No, you've got to go, you're all, we're going to screw you lot." But smaller businesses, and I don't know, I said something during the election campaign that lots of people laughed at. You weren't with me at that point, but genuinely this is true. I said that I think he's invited so many people into his tent to get elected that his big problem afterwards will be trying to placate everybody. And now he's got a position where he might want to build a runway, he might want to lower taxes. You know the tractor tax to screw farmers so he can nick their land and build wind farms. Has he not worked out that? I worked it out the other day, 74 of the seats in the north that his Labour Party won to win that election are rural constituencies. The minute all that stuff starts, the emails that those MPs... I genuinely think that he's in a position where he's promised to his own people too much, to us not enough, and I think the British people are very hacked off with the situation.
I think you made a really good point. Well, you made several really good points, of course. I mean, at the beginning of what you just said, in that I think
rest was crap,
the rest of it is a lot to be desired. But you started well, and that's what counts.
Right, well that'll go viral, won't it? That's because I'm 60, love. Yeah, go on, crack on. Yeah.
You dish it out, you've got to get it back sometimes.
Apparently,
it's only fair.
Yeah.
So this idea that he's trying to please too many people, I think loads of people thought that was an election-winning tactic. I think loads of people thought he's going to do this before the election so that he wins, which is fair. Loads of parties have done that in history, fine. But then thought that once he was in, it would be more clear kind of what the party stands for, what their priorities are. But it still feels like we're trying to please people on the far left of the political spectrum, and then Tories as well, and it's like that it doesn't match up.
I ended up thinking during the election campaign that Starmer and Sunak, there wasn't much difference, and I took real affront to Reform being called far right because you're far too young, but I was brought up in a Tory household, and the things that Reform, not all of it, but a lot of what Reform was talking about was traditional Tory values. But, you had Boris Johnson advocating net zero. You had all of, and I said it yesterday, and I'd be interested in your opinion on this. Whatever we think about the Labour government, whatever we think about what the Tories have become or what we think about Reform, I think the British public, a few years ago, were like disenfranchised, not interested. I think they're so hacked off. I think they're so off that they work hard, they struggle to pay their bills, they, you know, the ones that never ask for a handout, and then they look at either people coming to this country or criminals being released early or unions. We're apparently 22 billion in a black hole. You can't say black anymore. Do you know that? It's the other day. But we're going to give them a rise. And I think a lot of people are going, hold on a minute, that's not fair, that's not right. And I think politicians of all sides, if they don't start being more transparent, warts and all, they're in big trouble. I really believe that.
Yeah, I think that's really fair. And I also think, just kind of in terms of optics and what Labour are trying to do, something that's a bit confusing, I think, is that you've had a go at the Conservatives for rowing back on net zero, for example. You've said that the climate needs to be a priority. You've then given the go-ahead to a Heathrow runway expansion, which obviously kind of negates everything that they've been saying about net zero, because
they promise growth, which is why you promise everything. You can't do it.
Well, this is it. So it's like you can't have both, I don't think.
I think the view's easy from the cheap seats, and I think that Keir Starmer personally is out of his depth. I'm not saying that any of the last two Tory Prime Ministers weren't out of their depth, but I think anybody could have won that election. I think the Tories were that bad and had stopped being listened to by the public, and I do fear. It's so nice to... Will you come every week?
Of course I'll come every week.
Very nice. And James treats you well, yeah? Make sure you do, James, because otherwise I'll visit you in the small hours and put a bat up your nightdress. I'm joking.
He's not. You're not joking, are you?
No.
No, you're not.
But he wouldn't be at yours because you're not living together, you're not married. That would be wrong. 10 to 5, this is Talk Drive.